Daniel 9:27 is the answer to a World War III scare. If that happens, then that kicks off the 70th week, which you've seen in my timelines. I always do blue first and then red. Peace and safety and then sudden destruction, because this is a peace agreement. Warning, this video may induce cognitive dissonance. How do I get there with the Bible verses? It's basically Jesus talking here, and he says, I will go and return to my place until they, the Bible's like primarily all about Israel, so that's always who the they is, and it's who the we is. I will go and return to my place until they acknowledge their offense. And their offense was this. Their offense was crucify an innocent man. He says, I will go and return to my place until they acknowledge their offense. Jesus saying he's not coming back until they acknowledge their offense and seek my face, he says. And then he says, in their affliction, they will seek me early. That's Hosea 5:15. So this is also a little sidetrack. This is why Jesus was standing up. Jesus was standing up in Acts chapter 7 because he was going to see if they were going to receive the words from Stephen, empowered by the Holy Spirit, accusing them of murdering him. And of course they didn't. They murdered Stephen too. So he was going to come back. He says, I'm going to return to my place, seated at the right hand of the Father, until they acknowledge their offense and seek my face. Well, they didn't do that in Acts chapter 7. Jesus sat back down again. And then he says, in their affliction, they will seek me early. Their affliction is what we're kind of talking about tonight. This right here, if we cross-reference the word affliction, it's the second half of the 70th week. This is the first 3.5 years, time of peace and safety, plenty of prophecy by the two witnesses, and then there's a famine of prophecy here for the second 3.5 years, which is Amos 8:11. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord God, that I will send a famine in the land, and not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but of hearing the words of the Lord. And then we see the word affliction. For in those days shall be affliction, such as was not from the beginning of the creation which God created unto this time, neither shall be. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and shall be hated of all nations for my sake. And that is just a synoptic word. Here's Hosea 5:15 again, for affliction, which is great tribulation, and Jacob's trouble, great trouble. And that is also connected up here to something Stephen said, talking about a different type and shadow, which was about with Joseph in the land. He says this, but then just a couple verses later, he says, after 2 days will he revive us. In the third day he will raise us up, and we shall live in his sight. After 2 days. So then what's interesting is about that until the New Testament was written over here, 2 Peter 3:8, nobody had any idea what this meant. But now we understand what these 2 days are, because Peter says, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is one day. 2 Peter 3:8. And so now you have these two things that we can link together, Old Testament and New Testament. And so from the cross, it would be 2,000 years to when he comes back. He says, I will return to my place till they acknowledge their offense. Till. That's 2,000 years. Till. And so how do we know if this is 31? Like, it would be 2,000 years, so how do we know? Why am I putting 31 on this chart? Well, it all comes from 70 AD. All comes from 70 AD. And so that's this over here. So I did a video on this. It's Jonah's timeline. And what we see is that Jesus said to the men of Israel in his time, a wicked and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign, and there shall no sign be given unto it but the sign of the prophet Jonah. And he left them and departed. And so he wanted them to look up. He wanted them to look up Jonah and read it and figure out this. He spoke to them in parables. He spoke to them in riddles, and he wanted them to do a little bit of homework. And so he didn't tell them what this actually meant. And so I grew up always thinking that the sign of Jonah was this fish, 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the whale, which also has to do with his death, burial, and resurrection. It's kind of weird because technically Jonah getting vomited out of a whale is him coming out of death. So vomiting is kind of like resurrection. But that's really not what the sign was. The sign was actually what happened after that. Jonah traveled from the sea 3 days' journey to get there to Nineveh, and then he preached for 1 day, and the warning was that in 40 days Nineveh would be overthrown. So that's what's down here. Arise and go to Nineveh, God says to Jonah. He says, cry against it, for their wickedness has come up before me. That's a cross-reference up to here, Matthew 16:4. A wicked and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign. And so these are just connections. And then it says, so Jonah arose and went to Nineveh according to the word of the Lord. Now Nineveh was an exceeding great city of 3 days' journey. And Jonah began to enter the city a day's journey, and he cried. And he said, yet 40 days and Nineveh shall be overthrown. So you've got 3 days' journey, which is here, and then a day's journey inside the city, and then he was preaching a 40 over there. So now when you get to Jesus, Peter becomes the next Jonah. Peter, son of Jonah, Jesus called him in John 21. And that's because this was now going to take on a bigger, it wasn't just days now it turns to years. So in Luke 13:7, Jesus refers to Israel as being a fig tree, and he says, except you repent, ye shall also likewise perish. And he spoke a parable. A certain man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard, and he came and sought fruit thereon, and found none. Then said he unto the dresser of his vineyard, behold, these 3 years I come seeking fruit on this tree, and find none. Cut it down, why cumbereth it the ground? So he's coming to find fruit on the tree for 3 years. This is Jesus' ministry. And the vine dresser says, Lord, let it alone this year also, till I shall dig about it and dung it. So the vine dresser is saying, give him 1 more year, and I'm going to fertilize it. And then we'll see if it has any more, if it bears fruit. And so it says, and if it bear fruit, well, and if not, then after that thou shalt cut it down. So this is a parable that Jesus talked, and this is connected to the sign of Jonah. And so Jesus' ministry was 3 years, and then Peter became the next Jonah, preaching to Jerusalem for 1 year, which was Acts 1-7, and we talked about them rejecting the message, and they stoned Stephen. And so the result of this is that in 40 years, Jerusalem would be cut down. But this was the first year out of 40, in the same way that Nineveh's was with Jonah. So if you start counting on your fingers and you want to count 40 years and you start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that would literally be 31, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 40, like that. You start with the 1. The first year is the 1, so it's a 31. Because we know that this was cut down in 70. So we back it off there, and what we have is this. So that's all that's going on inside of this on this chart is the whole sign of Jonah right here. It's this whole warning period like this. The number 40 in God's word is used quite a bit for warning, punishment, testing, and transition. And down here at the bottom is the one that really stuck out to me. And so when I studied it through, I found everything that you just saw. And so if that's the case, then it would be somewhere around 31 would be 2 days. From that would be 2,000 years. If I'm not off, and if you count back from there, then you land in 2024. So that's the timeline as far as I see it so far. Hopefully that makes sense. This is 2017 to 2031. I've already explained like what I see as my theory. 2017 to 2024 to 2031. 7 years and 7 years. Okay. So back in 2011, I discovered this, which was a sign. The sun was in Virgo. Jupiter did a retrograde motion inside of her belly for 9 months and then came out right between her legs. Jupiter's the king planet, both striped and pierced. He was wounded for our transgressions, and by his stripes we are healed. The moon was at her feet. It's the Feast of Trumpets. It's Jesus' birthday. It's also the day when Israel's going to be resurrected from the dead. We went through all that. Leo has 9 stars in it. In Revelation 12, 1 and 2, it says that there's a woman clothed with the sun and the moon at her feet. She's in labor and in pain giving birth, but she has 12 stars above her head. Well, right above her head, if she had a head, which she doesn't, Virgo is the virgin. It represents not just Israel, but Mary herself, the virgin birth. Leo has 9 stars in it, but Mercury, Mars, and Venus showed up, making 12, and I thought that was amazing, so I shared it on the internet and went nuts. So, and at that time when that happened, there was a solar eclipse. The moon went in between the earth and the sun on August 21st, 2017. Oh, there's our verse right here. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. And so I went looking back in 2010 and 2011. I went looking to see if there was something that could actually be real. And I used an astronomy program, and I came up with this day. And it just so happens that Jupiter was in Virgo in a retrograde pattern for 9 months, which is a human gestation period. You can't make that stuff up. And also, I looked at over 2,000 times that the sun is in Virgo and the moon is at her feet, because that always happens every year. The other planets, Mercury, Mars, Venus, and Jupiter, did not do this. I literally researched that. Nobody's done that work. I literally researched to make sure that this was an exclusive day, and it was. Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. So that happened in the autumn of 2017. 7 years from that, it comes to the fall of 2024. Let me see. So if I were to say, you are here. Last time I looked at this chart, it was like a month ago. So let me move this over. We are now here. Going into winter. We just had the solstice was just yesterday. So I guess technically we are now in winter. Now, what's interesting is that what happens next is April 8th, there is okay, so in the spring of 2024, there's going to be another eclipse. 7 years, not exactly 7 years, because one was in the fall and the other's in the spring. So it's kind of 6.5 really. But as far as the years go, on the Gregorian calendar, it's kind of a 7-year thing. Nothing's like perfect, but it's interesting nonetheless. These are not in the Bible. There's no verses for this, but it's interesting. It's fun. And what happens, interestingly enough, here is this. Right after the summer of that eclipse, we're going to have an election year. And it's going to be a pretty big deal, I think. DJT, who I believe is going to be 47, he said, I will obliterate the deep state. Those are threats to the system, the satanic control system that controls everything. They don't want him. They can't have him become in power. Again, they just can't have that happen. It's an election year on 11.5. So I believe that what may happen is this. Right in here, there could be a scare. And so I've been saying this for a while, that and it's because, you hear the politicians talking about it. I think that the news cycle next year in 2024 is going to be a pretty big deal. If I'm right, and I'm not making this up. I'm getting it from, like, say, Donald Trump and certain politicians talking about World War III coming.
But I'm the only candidate who can make this promise. I will prevent World War III. I will prevent it. Not going to happen. And we're much closer than you think right now to having it. And at some point it will happen. It will happen. I will prevent it. I'm the only one that can say it. I know them all. I know how to deal with them. I deal with them. I will get it done. I will get it done.
I think that World War III is not actually going to hit us. I think that it will be stopped.
This is the final battle. With you at my side, we will demolish the deep state. We will expel the warmongers from our government. We will drive out the globalists. We will cast out the communists, Marxists, and fascists. And we will throw off the sick political class that hates our country. We will rout the fake news media, and we will defeat crooked Joe Biden, We will liberate America from these villains once and for all.
And if it's stopped, then I think what could it be is this right here. Daniel 9:27. A peace agreement. Daniel 9:27 is the answer to a World War III scare. And so if that happens, then that kicks off the 70th week, which you've seen in my timelines. I always do blue first and then red. Peace and safety and then sudden destruction, because this is a peace agreement. That doesn't mean that Trump is the Antichrist. That just means that he might facilitate stopping World War III. And if that's the case, then that could be the perfect scenario. Down at the bottom, talking about the future Antichrist figure, it says that he will confirm a covenant with many, the covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week, that's 3.5 years in, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate, even unto the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. So it's a 7-year period. I believe that the temple is going to be rebuilt. They're going to start the sacrifice system, and then it's going to be stopped. That's what's going to happen. And that's basically this here. It's Israel's peace and safety, and then Israel's tribulation. Again, my dates are speculative. I'm just doing some, some number crunching with the verses and whatnot. This might not be how it works out, but it's just really interesting that all of this is happening. All of this is happening next year. That is on the schedule. So we'll see what happens. And from there, I talked about it earlier in the stream. If these numbers, this is just, speculation, putting things down. I do this kind of thing just for myself to get a picture, to put a calendar together. And the spring of 2028 would then be when Satan is cast down to the earth. It's so weird to say that. And he goes after, the focus is Israel. He wants Israel. So that's why I put the dragon on the state of Israel there. When the dragon saw that he was cast out to the earth, he persecuted Israel, which brought forth the man-child. And when the dragon was wroth with the woman, Israel, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, the remainders of her seed, meaning those who didn't run to the wilderness. These are the people who get forced to take the mark of the beast. And then after that, Jesus comes back, and then the kingdom is there. It looks pretty small there. It's 1,000 years long, but that's sort of my overall view. Subject to change, as it says down at the bottom. Timeline theory for study purposes only, subject to change, no predictions. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope that you got some good information out of this. If you did, would you please hit the like button? Thank you. You can also subscribe and make sure that you have the notifications on. And I welcome you to becoming a member of the channel and join the community. You'll have members-only perks and my eternal gratitude for your support. The link to the original live stream from which I took these clips is down below, and I'll see you in the next video.